Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is DarkPhoenix Gaming, and you are watching Kaiserreich, Legacy of the Weltkrieg, for Hearts of Iron 4, where we are continuing our playthrough as Germany. And before we go any further, I just have to say, I find it ever so slightly bemusing that this update is called Railway of Liberty, and yet we are playing the obviously autocratic authoritarian German Empire, as opposed to, like, America or something. More democratic. I just find that a little entertaining. In any case, when we left off last time, it was still 1936 because I had been going slow in getting everything set up. Of which we should probably try and maybe set some of the spirits. And I forgot about some of the new stuff from No Step Back, apparently. So let's just have our whole army start training. Yes, including the garrison troops out in the boonies. Them too. They can train as well. Because this is one change with No Step Back that I really kind of like. The fact that land doctrines are now a thing that you get with your military experience. You set your doctrines based off of experience that your military forces have, rather than some guys in a lab coming up with shit. And I just think it's a whole lot better like this. It just feels nice this way. I know some people probably don't like that method, but I rather enjoy being able to get doctrines through training and experience rather than anything else. Speaking of important things that happened last time, though, the Second Russian Civil War kicked off. Meaning the Russian Socialist Republic is now over here. Finland hasn't declared war on them yet, or occupied the Karelian bits that the Russian Federation holds, or Russian Republic rather. But that is a thing they like to do, I've noticed. Other than that, there's not a massive amount of big stuff of note last time. Other than Black Monday, of course. There is Black Monday. So I think we are now going to unpause the game and see what happens, because we do not have the manpower to go recruiting more divisions. Even if we could probably use them. Because, you know, we are inevitably going to have to fight on two fronts. I mentioned this before, but that was a thing that the developers of Kaiserreich actually changed, because there used to only be a chance that the Russian AI would declare war on Germany, but now I'm pretty sure they're heavily weighted towards going to war with the Germans, making it basically impossible to avoid an Eastern Front. So at the very least, we're guaranteed a general European war, rather than an isolated one between Germany and its vassal states and the Internationale. Of course, as most of these guys don't have colonial empires anymore, less of a chance of it becoming an actual Second World War. Although, if Japan attacks German East Asia to try and get a colony state out of the whole mess, it will technically turn into a world war. Possibly. And, of course, it depends on who wins in America. But yeah, no guarantee of a Second World War, but a general European war, on the other hand, between all the big players, is pretty likely to happen. And Pius XII has been elected as the new Pope. Catholic faithful in Rome breathed a sigh of relief as the Sistine Chapel's chimney billowed forth white smoke, signifying the election of a new Pope. A short time later, it was announced that the pious and popular Eugene Cardinal Pacelli had become His Holiness Pope Pius XII, leader of the Catholic Church and head of state of the Papal States. It is anticipated he will continue the policies of his predecessor, whose pontifical name he has taken. Good luck, Your Holiness. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot this in my summary, but the Union of Britain and Commune of France had their elections last time, where the British elected the Congregationists, which I don't actually know what that particular ideology is, and the French couldn't make up their minds, so they have a coalition. Usually I find one of them can't make up their minds and has to form a coalition. But a lot of times the French will go totalist on us, essentially. Full on George Orwell, Big Brother is watching type thing. Anyways, we have an event. The Kenyatta Solf affair. An unusual case has reached the highest court in the German state. Anti-colonial activist Jomo Kenyatta has brought a class action lawsuit against former African Statthalter Wilhelm Solf. The case has become something of an embarrassment, as some of the plaintiffs are veterans of the Weltkrieg. It cannot be easily dismissed. They claim that Solf's administration harmed them through the policies of illegal land seizures and even abductions and torture, all done with Solf's knowledge and little legal basis. Quietly, the Foreign Office has explained to the government that such things are common and necessary in our colonial administration. They strongly urge we quash the motion. Okay, so we have two options here. We could say the court has no right to rule on Middle African affairs and simply tell them to suck it up, and the Kaiser stamps down on the whole thing here and now. Or what's the worst that could happen? Middle Africa will suffer greatly if the court case passes. Now, I believe that going what's the worst that could happen is the option that can potentially lead to Middle Africa splintering and dissolving into a bunch of different microstates, as I see happen in a lot of games where I'm not playing as Germany, where Middle Africa will break up into a bajillion teensy tiny pieces. And they all become fully independent. I think there's one of them that ends up with more ties of sorts to Germany, but even that particular faction doesn't actually remain a puppet state of Germany. So, saying what's the worst that could happen could potentially deprive us of the majority of our African colonial holdings. Because we have basically, I think that's about a third of Africa, maybe a quarter, in the form of Middle Africa. And losing all of that, I would not want to do. So we're going to clamp down on this hard. The court has no right to rule on Middle African affairs. Take your silly court case and go home. Like I said, autocratic to the core. Famine breaks out in Sichuan. Just some randos in China who have gotten themselves a famine. And I may have mentioned this before, but I'm not actually going to read all of the events. I'm going to read the ones that I believe are relevant to the narrative and Germany as a nation, but I won't read every one about every irrelevant nation all over the damn place. And Sichuan is a part of China that we have no interest in. The Qing and the legation cities are about as far as our interest and influence in the region extends. And probably the Liangguang clique here. And Siam, given that they're the most direct border, they're the nations that most directly border our colony in Indochina. So we probably care about them a little bit. Communard France shows its true face. The Reds are clearly set to spread their poison, and they have demonstrably shown during the last session of the elections. Must be prepared for anything. We must be ready. There's another 10,000 manpower. I misread the numbers there. I thought it was 100,000. The Russian Socialist Republic has annexed the Dongban Union, who probably should not have started that war, to be perfectly honest. And somehow these are already cores of the Reds. Not sure how that happened, but it did. Now, let us see. Command. We need 100 of our military, our army experience to be able to get ourselves a land doctrine. And we can't set a preferred tactic yet. Might be able to set some spirits, though. Eventually. For now, no. It appears the Reds are advancing quite rapidly over in Russia. Ah, member of Middle Europa. That's another thing we should talk about that is different from the Darkest Hour version of this mod. In Darkest Hour, Middle Europa was the German military alliance. But here in the Hearts of Iron 4 version, the Reichspakt is our alliance. And Middle Europa is the economic bloc. The best way to think about it is Middle Europa is sort of like the European Union, in a way. The only difference is that Germany is definitely the boss. And in a lot of ways, Middle Europa is more sort of designed to let Germany get all the economic advantages and take ruthless advantage of the fact that they are the most powerful nation in Europe. Use that to bully everyone into trading how they want to. And the vast majority of Western Europe, as well as all of the German clients, well, a lot of Western Europe, not counting France, of course, are actually members of Middle Europa. So the Netherlands are. Flanders Wallonia obviously is, because they're a German puppet state. Switzerland isn't, because Switzerland. None of the Austrian nations are. Serbia isn't. Romania isn't. Bulgaria isn't. The Ottoman Empire isn't. Finland and Sweden are. This is Denmark, but Norway is not. So basically, a whole bunch, all the nations that are in Germany's sphere of influence to some degree are members, with the exception of Poland. Poland, who decided they wanted to be a republic, rather than put a monarch on the throne, as any proper nation would do. Okay, our national focus is done. We have liquidated the unprofitable estates, moving some civilian factories. Now, I'm gonna move on to a different thing. Military expansion, I think. We can do imperial restructuring after. I'll need to do that to get further down the tree to fixing Black Monday. But for now, we can do this. The Chief of General Staff has been embroiled in heated debate as to which military doctrine should be adopted. He should establish an impartial committee of military officers to oversee the adoption of a new doctrine, which gives us a bunch of military experience across the board. Now, how are you doing, Russians? Well, the Reds are still winning, as expected. And they are trekking ever closer to the Russian Republic's provisional capital of Ekaterinburg, however you say that. which probably means we're going to have a red Russia in the east. Not great. Not great. And Costa Rica is requesting our assistance. Which, let's see. That's Puerto Rico, not Costa Rica. I forgot where Costa Rica was for a second. That's a bit embarrassing. But yeah, Central America. Disastrous has the otherwise quiet little nation of Costa Rica when the ZKG, and I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that, crashed hard on the Berlin Stock Exchange just a few weeks earlier, dragging the nation into a hole out of which it will be unable to recover on its own. To save them from complete collapse, the small nation has requested a loan to bail out the ZKG. I assume the ZKG is the Costa Rican currency, perhaps? But I'm not sure. And we're not in the best shape either. But a loan would potentially get us influence over their government, and we might be able to use that to expand our sphere of economic influence. Alright then, we'll offer you assistance. Manuel Carles has assumed full control of Argentina, so yeah. Military coup in Argentina, essentially. But we do not care about Argentina. Suffragist movement gathers strength. Lately, there's been increased momentum in the women's suffrage movement, which seeks to force the government to enfranchise women by giving them the right to vote and stand for elected office. These troubled times for the empire must be careful in formulating a policy response liable to cause domestic tensions. Granting the suffragists what they ask would anger the more conservative elements of our government, particularly members of the Reichstag, a body currently elected solely by universal male suffrage. On the other hand, a stern refusal followed by reprisals may lead to further protests and riots, especially in the more liberal states, many of which already permit female voting in the regional assemblies. Let's see, if we say it's a cause worth supporting, I lose 100 political power. Ironically, the Union of Britain and Commune of France like us more. If we do that. Not by enough to actually make a difference, but they do like us more, which is a little entertaining. We could promise action but do nothing? We lose less political power, or women, know your limits. They dislike us more. Well, I am going to act in the style of your typical politician, and we will say that, oh sure, we'll give you reforms and more rights and everything, but we're not actually going to do what we say. It's just empty words. I will promise action, but do nothing. Our military expansion national focus is done. And Romania nationalizes the oil fields. After the complete crash of Oilland's leaseholding company managing the Plosti oil fields, Codruianu's government proceeded to nationalize nationalize the assets of the bankrupt corporation. It is yet another case of Romania breaking the Bucharest Treaty. But there's little we can do to stop them. Neither does the public much care about the issue. Well, if they think they can survive without Metal Europa, so be it. Trade sanctions, bitches. Trade sanctions. And now with military expansion done, let's see. I think it's time for imperial restructuring. While it is an undeniable fact that the German Empire is the greatest nation to ever grace the pages of history, there is always room for improvement. In the light of recent quote-unquote shortcomings in our administration, we should look into making various policy changes and reforms for a better future.